I have spent so much time and money over the years trying to find the perfect planner, but out of all the ones that I've tried, none of them ever quite fit what I actually needed. And then I started using a $12 notebook, and it turned out to be exactly what I had been looking for the whole time. So today I'm going to walk you through what I tried, where I ended up landing, and how it all works and can really work for anyone. And I'm even going to touch on a couple of potential hangups and if you decide to go this route and how to easily work around those. So be sure to stick around till the end. The problem with traditional planners, like I said, I've used multiple expensive planners, cheap planners, whatever, over the years. I've tried digital apps too back in the day before I really wanted to get away from being dependent on a screen. And on top of that, when using the paper planners and when it didn't meet all of my needs, I would write things down in separate notebooks or on sticky notes, and then I would lose those. So personally, having multiple places to juggle and keep up with everything was honestly really overwhelming for me and honestly annoying because things would fall through the cracks all the time, which defeats the purpose of planning. So fast forward a little bit, I thought that maybe I just needed a daily planner and then maybe a planner that's separate for homeschool and then one for home management and then maybe something for business and all as separate things. And that got complicated real fast and was definitely not quite it for me. So I started wondering, why couldn't I use a plain notebook instead? It's cheap, it's customizable, I can use it for whatever I need, all in one place instead of losing pieces of my life across 5 different notebooks and a handful of sticky notes. I wasn't quite sure if it was going to work for long-term planning, but I wanted to try to figure out a way to make it work. So I figured out a system that has worked wonderfully for me and all of the moving pieces of our home. And at this point, as a part of that system, I have no issues with long-term planning, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how all of that works. By the way, if you're wanting more tools like this for actually running your home with less overwhelm, I walk through a lot more of what's worked for us and for thousands of other women inside my free 20-minute masterclass. You can grab that down below. But let's get back to the notebook. So here is exactly how I use it. Personally, I like using only one notebook for all of my daily planning, my weekly planning, and everything else that I use the notebook for. I've heard of some people using multiple different notebooks depending on what it's for, and I think that's fine. But as I've already alluded to earlier, that's not how I roll. But it is just totally dependent on how your brain works and what's most helpful to you. For me, I don't like having multiple places to have to find things. I like knowing it's all in one place so that I can always go to it and know exactly where to find what I need. That being said, I do have a separate home management binder for my routines and the things that are more set in stone. I don't go to that binder to jot down random things or to try to remember things that are happening in our home. That is just where the more concrete things live. And I usually only reference it if I don't remember something or if there's a new tweak in a routine or if I need to look something up as a reference. So this notebook that I'm talking about today is something that I use every single day, multiple times a day, and I love it. So what makes this work for me is a simple weekly rhythm. I sit down, I do my weekly reset, and I plan out our week. When I do that, I jot down what I call my week at a glance, and on there I'll write down, it's all on one page, any appointments or happenings throughout the week, along with my dinner plans for each night. On that same day, as I'm writing out the meals, I also write out my shopping list on the very next page based on my meal plan. At this point, I've got it down to a science, and so it only takes me about 10 minutes, but starting out, it might take a little longer at first, and that's fine. For appointments and anything that needs to be scheduled ahead of time, long-term planning that I referred to earlier, my husband and I at this point use a shared Google Calendar, and it works really well for us. I just glance at it really quick while we're planning out the week or while I'm planning out the week, jot down what I need from it, and then I put that calendar away so that the screen is not sitting out there distracting me. And then for all other planning that I'm doing for the week or throughout the week, I just use my notebook. And then every evening I do my daily planning where I write down my priorities for the next day. I pull over my dinner plan and write that on the same page as well so that it's all in one spot. And then I note any appointments. I go into this whole weekly reset and daily planning process in a lot more depth in another video and show you how it's all laid out. I'll link that down below if you want to see how that all works in more detail, but we're just going to keep going here. So I've talked about the daily and the weekly planning, but there are some other very awesome things that set a notebook apart from other planners and why it's so helpful. And I'm going to talk about that next. By the way, if we haven't met yet, my name is Lauren. I'm a homeschooling mom of 6, and this channel is all about building fruitful, life-giving homes through simple, God-honoring rhythms. If that sounds like something you need, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss my videos. Something else that I love is that I can use this notebook for literally whatever I want. Last week, I wanted to do my scripting for a video, so I sat down at a coffee shop, I pulled my notebook out of my purse, opened up to the very next page for the week, and I jotted it down. When I needed to reference that script again, all I had to do was flip over to it with my bookmark. I love this particular notebook. I'll link it down below that I use. It's got 2 bookmarks and some tabs in the back that you can also use for miscellaneous things if you want to bookmark things to come back to later, if that makes sense. So really it's the same with almost anything. I keep my grade book in this notebook. I use it for packing list. I'll use it for project list. I like to do a clothing inventory when we're doing seasonal changes and I need to figure out what do my kids have, what clothes do they have, what do they need. I'll write that down in the notebook. Really anything that you need it for, you just use it. It's all in one spot. It's marvelous. That's the beauty of it. I can use this notebook to plan mom things, to plan and record school things or home management or business, personal things, whatever I want. And it's organized in my own way, right where I know to find it. Part of why this works so well is, again, the notebook itself. I really like this one. If you can't tell, I love that it has those 2 bookmarks. I use one for the week at a glance, one for the day that we're on, so I can easily flip to those whenever I need to. And I like those tabs. I don't use a ton of tabs, but for the grade book and project list and anything that I need to easily come back to, I'll just use those. And it's just really nice. Personally, I like to use a pencil for planning or these erasable pens that I found that I've love, and I've used them for years. I'll link those down below as well. Before we wrap up, there are 2 possible hangups that are worth thinking through if you want to try this. The first is planning ahead, which is why pairing the notebook with the calendar works so well. And whether that's a Google Calendar like we use or a plain paper calendar from somewhere like the dollar store, if you want to stay completely off of a screen, you can easily fit those in your pocket or in your purse. I did that for a really long time. The second potential hangup is that eventually the notebook runs out. For me, that really does take months, even with as much as I use it. I use my notebook for literally everything. There are a few things that I like to transfer over to the new one, like my meal list in the back that I reference when I'm meal planning, my grades, or my project list. Honestly, it does not happen that often, and it's not that big of a deal for me to take just a few minutes to rewrite certain things in another notebook, but there are a few ways to make that even easier. You can either rip the page out and simply tape it into the new notebook, or you can type it up and have it in a file so that you can easily reprint something that you're going to use over and over again. To save even more time, you can take a picture of your notes and have good old AI type it up for you to put in a file to print and to keep. The one that I do this with the most, again, is my meal list because I've used this system for so long. I don't plan on going back to a planner at this point. I typed that list out one time and now I can just print it and use a washi tape or regular tape, whatever, to stick it into each new notebook that I start. Again, if you are tired of your home running you and you're ready to start running your home with some systems and routines that actually work for you and they're realistic, I walk you through exactly that in my free masterclass. Again, I will link that down below. It's totally free. Be sure to go check that out. Thank you so much for being here today, and I will see you in the next one.